We shift our conversation to the final hour of the conversation this week. Let's talk about student leadership. And particularly today, we focus on the welfare of students with disability across the country, either from primary to secondary to tertiary institutions. And we are now joined by Haya Dennis. Haya is the chairman of the University of Nairobi Students with Disability Association and also the acting chair of the Kenya Students with Disability Association. Haya, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you very much.
That is called the hot seat of the situation. Yeah? It spares nobody, not even comrades.
Okay.
Sawabana.
I do not expect any kind of privilege, any kind of spare. Do not spare me, because I also won't spare you.
Yeah, no, we don't spare anybody. We welcome everybody warmly. We are very hospitable people. We are good people.
Okay.
We are honest people. We work hard.
Okay.
You guys come to church.
Okay.
This association, the UN Students with Disability Association,
Yes, sir.
how old is it and what is it all about?
Its abbreviation is UNSWIDA. So it started in 2018 by the current chair for Kenya Blind Association. It's called Samson Waweru. It was in its 4th year then, when I was in Form 2. So he started the association because there had not been the university, in one or the other, by default, had neglected or had assumed that there are students with disability in the institution and they are having obstacles that need to be looked into. So he came up with this association with his counterpart who was then taking law, and they drafted the constitution, which was not perfect, but just as a start. Then after he left, the association died, because they are the people who started it, and he started it in his final year.
He was in the final year.
Yeah.
After he left, the next year, basically.
So then the association died. So when I came in first year in 2021, then we revived the association. With my watch and with Disability Liaison Office. So the association, it caters for any concern raised and discussed by students who are disabled, who are having any kind of disability within the institution. Yeah, so I took the mandate to make it having a mouth in by default, and make it vibrant and make it known. And through that, we partner with the Office of Dean of Students, and that is where the Disability Liaison Office was situated. And the institution came up with what we call Disability Mainstreaming Committee. This is a committee that is it comprises staff and lecturers within the institution who, in one or the other, have a heart to ensure that there is inclusivity and equality within the institution as far as disability is concerned. So with partnership with the Dean of Students and the Disability Mainstreaming Committee, the association has a mouth, has a voice, and has an eye, as it is now. So although still we are not getting we are getting better, but not that much. But we had a strategic plan with the mainstreaming committee, and this strategic plan is for 5 years. So we have a goal for 5 years, and we believe that before those 5 years elapses, we shall have reached the target, and we shall have brought a big change, of course, before my departure.
How many members are in this association?
The association comprises of 200 students with disability within the university, because the University of Nairobi has 13 faculties. And these students come from all these faculties. Yes.
What's the population, the student population in the University of Nairobi?
It's crazy. It is 69,000.
69,000. And only 200 of these students.
Those are the 200 are the one that we've recognized as it is now. But
meaning they are members.
They are members which we have not recognized, and with speculation, and we tend to believe that there are more than 1,000.
They're more than 1,000,
yeah.
And yet they're 69,000. So I'm going somewhere with this. See, I'm asking myself the question: is it that people who live with disabilities in this country, do they get a fair shake? Do they have the opportunities that take into account their disability, and so that having happened gives them an opportunity to actually get yes. You know where I'm going with this.
I expected that question.
You did, eh?
And
all right, now I'm expecting an answer.
And of course, a good answer.
Yes.
In the past, the University of Nairobi has not had a very vibrant, a very good programs or structured programs for students with disability. And KU has had, right? And other institutions, and most of them are private. So most of the special schools within the country, these students were being recommended, go to Kenyatta University, go to this university, because those very universities had good structure, had good plans for them. So that's why the population has not grown to the number we expect. But because of the formidable programs and structures we have incorporated, and within the strategic plan, we tend to believe that the numbers will be rising, because it is now outside there that the University of Nairobi, being a world-class university, is now taking care of students with disability well, and with good structures and with good planning, and ensuring that there is proper and at least a good percentage of inclusion agenda.
So, Haya, what are some of the issues that we used to see? We're talking about non-inclusion. What exactly does that mean? You're on campus, you're going through the rigors of it every day. By the time we're saying that there is an agitation to make sure that the representation exists, obviously there were things that had been experienced that made it clear that there was improper representation, or that there was no representation at all. So what are some of those things? What did we see? How would we tell that we needed to make sure something was done because of 1, 2, 3?
Thank you for that question. When you mention disability within an institution, the next thing that should come to your thought is accessibility. Accessibility means the infrastructural structure of that institution. How are the structures there put in a way that favors people or students with disability of whichever kind?
Yeah.
And more often than not, the people who tend to suffer are the people who are physically impaired, because they have to use wheelchairs too. So the infrastructural development within the institution has, in the past years, has not been favorable enough to ensure that the people with the wheelchairs or people who are having accessibility or mobility problems are well catered for. So the school started building ramps, coming up with escalators, coming up with hostels that are disability friendly, and referring our students to if a student with disability is not comfortable staying within the institution, the institution partner with a real estate company called Kwetu. Kwetu, they basically centered within in building hostels for students. So Kwetu hostels with the partnership with the university. So most of our students with disability who might in one or the other may not be comfortable with the hostels, they are referred to the Kwetu hostels. And through that, the accessibility issue has now been improved greatly. And last year, December, the school, the Kwetu hostel manager and the institution, they came to school, and now they want to build structures or new hostel, modern hostel. And they want to create, within the hostel, there must be spaces or rooms specifically for students with disability. And I attended that meeting, and we agreed. And these hostels, there will be 3-story buildings. And each story building will be having a capacity of 200 spaces for students with disability, meaning a total of 600 spaces shall be there for students with disability. So meaning there's a good roadmap the university is taking to ensure
addressing this,
embracing accessibility. That is just one issue. Now, second, it comes to assistive device. That is now when you get to, you've now been assisted, you've accessed the tuition facility. Now you are within the classroom. Now within the classroom, there is learning taking place. And now, with the learning taking place, you need to be assisted to get the assistive devices that ensure that you do not face any challenge in taking notes, in hearing the lecturer, or in seeing whatever. So the assistive devices has been a challenge, right? Because we admit students who are visually impaired. They need JAWS, they need those the gadgets,
braille,
the brailles, braille machines. So the university have partnered with organizations. We have Kilimanjaro Brain Trust. We have other organizations. We have the National Council for Persons with Disability, in ensuring that if we admit a students who is having, who need to be assisted by whichever assistive device, that assistive device is available. So that is an issue that in the past was a challenge. But now with the track the university is taking, that those assistive devices, in future now, moving forward, they are now available. And now they
How are they available? Is the university saying that for every student that we admit who has a visual impairment, we shall make sure that we list down everything that they need and we shall provide it?
Yes.
Or are they saying, okay, so we have like 10 braille machines in this that to be used by all the students who have visual impairment?
Okay. Both your speculations are right, but one is right, is more right than the other.
Which one? Let's start with
the last one is more right. I mentioned that the university has partnered with the organization that provide these assistive devices. Now, this partnership happened early this year, and now they are yet to arrive by June. So meaning, because we are expecting first years in September, so meaning by the time first years will be arriving, these assistive devices will be available. But now, in a situation that the assistive devices are not enough, and a student need a special assistive device, then the school must now approach it individually to that student. Now, we have to understand that, okay, you have this kind of disability, you need this kind of assistive device, but it is not available within these ones that we had purchased. Now we have to deal with you individually. We have to know which exactly assistive device that you will want to use. that we want to have. So then we deal with that individually. Again, we have international friends who are already sponsoring out most of our students, and they are providing these assistive devices to the students that they sponsor. So that is also a good improvement that I'm seeing as a student leader for that category. Yeah, of course, I've also worked my lungs off to ensure that these are now the issues that are on the table. I've also partnered with the organization personally. I've approached more than 10 from August last year. I've approached, yesterday I was just at the the National Gender and Equality Commission headquarters, and I was having a conversation on how we can partner, and they have now called me for a general meeting on Tuesday, of which it will be a hot seat like this one, and they will not spare me, and I will also not spare them.
How do you categorize or classify the disabilities that you have at the UON?
Okay, when you mention disability, there are no categories, there are disciplines. So we have various disciplines for persons with disability. One is the hearing impaired. So the hearing impaired, I will mention, and I will talk a little about it. The school has hired interpreters, sign language interpreters, such that when a student with hearing impaired is attending a lesson, we must have an interpreter in that class, specifically for that person.
Even if it's one student?
Even if it is one.
In a lecture hall of...
In a lecture hall of 300 or 1,000, we must have an interpreter.
Okay.
And if we have a function that this student with hearing impaired is attending, or we will assume that within the congregation there's a person who is having hearing impairment, we will have an interpreter. And those are improvements that the university has made. So that is one discipline. Two, we have the visually impaired students. So the visually impaired students, we encourage when a first year who is having a visual impairment arrives, we encourage them to make acquaintance with their friends. And if that become a problem, then we give that person an assistance or a guide, whom will be one doing him individual orientation of corridors within the institution and their hostels where they will be spending most of their time, and even make them more familiar with their tuition blocks, with their courses, with their portal, with everything that the university and learning the university requires. So that is to the individual who are having hearing impairment. Visual. We have a discipline of physically impairment. So the physical impairment, you will find that some are amputated like me, some are having scratches, some are having wheelchairs. So we will now see who among these people with the physical impairment are more in need in terms of assistance. So if you find that there's an individual with wheelchair, then that person will be given a guide or somebody who will be assisting them. If it become a problem that they cannot make acquaintance within themselves and identify one good Samaritan within the institution. And the good thing, when the so-called assistant or guide becomes, when by all possibility is a student or she's a student, we will be given our hostel free of charge in the courtesy of giving assistance to so-and-so. And
this
that's
is the one who's physically impaired.
Yes. Physically impaired, of course, physically impaired is assured of a hostel. And now, when the assistance is a student who also need to be accommodated, then we will give that accommodation.
Okay.
You get the point?
Okay.
And that now happened cut across to all the assistance. Yes, all the guidance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that is another discipline. We have the stammerers. Yeah. That is another discipline. They have to be. We advocated for what we call reasonable accommodation. Reasonable accommodation ensures that you must understand what this individual needs. So if you identify that someone having, verbal disability, stammering, then a lecturer must be notified earlier, so that in future, if there are presentations to be made, then this person, if the presentation was to take 1 hour, then the person will be given 1 hour 45 minutes, because the articulation will be taking more time. That is what we call that is just an example of a reasonable accommodation. Another reasonable accommodation comes during exams. We have to be given an extra hours, because nowadays exams, most of them are online, and we need to type. For example, Haya here only have one usable hand. That will not, I will not type at the rate,
same speed.
Yeah.
the same. And another one is that if I'm not comfortable with typing, then I'm being told you can handwrite, scan, and do what, and send and submit. But we have to be given extra hours. So those are among the reasonable accommodation within the institution. Yes. So that is another. We have albinism and visual impaired. They always marry each other. But that is also another category. So far so good. We have also we didn't have those. Are
there developmental impairments?
Sorry?
Developmental impairments that are considered?
Yes.
For example, people who
lip and this.
Yep. I'm trying to remember the name.
I'm also trying to remember the name.
The reading.
Dyslexia.
Right?
Yes.
So people who have dyslexia, dypraxia, and all kind of impairments, what kind of assistance or what kind of support should they be expecting from the institution?
No.
Or how do you actually recognize them?
So we do always have, in the institution, there's office of Dean of Assistant Dean of Students. So the Assistant Dean of Students is basically to cater for the students' welfare. So we usually encourage every orientation, every year. So we have to articulate these issues so that any other person who is having developmental issues approaches a relevant office. And once they have approached that relevant office, then action must be taken. In line with what they really need. And that will be given.
You know what I was thinking of? When we talk about people living with disabilities, but more specifically students who are in the university living with disabilities, we seem to take one disability at a time. My question, Haya, is do we have students who have a combination of disabilities?
Okay. Yes, we do.
And how do you manage these students? And this combination of disabilities, what are the ones which are common, if there are any, and what do we see?
Okay. We have cases of combination of disability. Like the most common is stammering and hearing impairment. So you find that this student, he can slightly verbalize or articulate some issues slightly, but again he can get whatever you're saying slightly. That is how the combination works. So in this scenario, he is given a sometimes double treatment, because during presentation you must be loud enough, because he can hear you but slightly. So meaning in this situation it does not literally need to be signed to. You get? But you only need to be spoken to loud enough and be given more time in his presentation. That are the more cases that we've had. And there was a case, although I heard that there was a case of someone who had a visual impairment and was on a wheelchair. So I just heard, so I did not know how that lady was being treated, but I just hope that she was having some reasonable accommodation, although I had not arrived in the institution then. But I am anticipating within my reign, if we have such a case, then that person must be at all costs be given double treatment and must be taken a keen look into throughout. And if he or she has a concern that need urgency, then we will have to. And you find that most of the students with who have physical impairment, they need frequent medical checkup. So we have a clinic within the institution that is responsible for that. Yeah, because you find there's who had a fracture within the leg, using scratches. There's my friend is called Maurice Owino has an issue with the backbone, but he's using and has an issue with the leg. So meaning he's using scratches. So he has a serious mobility issues. So for him, because he's a medical student, and medical students in first year, second year, you are in Chiromo.
Yes, you are.
And third year to fifth year or sixth year, you are in Kenyatta. So we had to give him accommodation, because even before you transfer officially to Kenyatta, there's some lessons while in Chiromo.
You take at Kenyatta.
So we just give him a direct room in Kenyatta. Yes, and in Kenyatta is now closer to Kenyatta Hospital. So there's that frequent checkup.
What's the support that comes from institutions? Let's say, like now, obviously you're talking about the University of Nairobi, but what is the support that comes from at an institutional level for some of these things to happen? Because here we are talking about some of these things must be policy, because then it affects how lecturers deliver lessons, isn't it? Because you talk about, speaking loudly. So should it be something that is understood by every lecturer, that it clicks off in your head that if you do then have a class where somebody who is living and operating with a disability, then you know that you must do 1, 2, 3. That's policy. There are things that must happen in terms of movement for those who have mobility issues. That's infrastructure. Again, infrastructural policy at that level then must be supported fully. Then we talk about logistics, like you talk about now. Or we know who has to shuttle between Chiromo and Kenyatta. Is it understood at that level that, look guys, it's not a thing of every time there's a new student we must now start the whole deliberation process again and say, guys,
how do we
have
deal
another
with this one?
Okay, help me with this one. Is there an umbrella understanding of the logistics, of the infrastructure, of the softer side of things that then is taken into consideration at that level of what needs to happen? Is there that support?
Thank you. Let me give you anonymous answer.
Anonymous? Did you say anonymous? Everybody can see you. Okay, go ahead.
Or autonomous.
Yes, autonomous is good.
Autonomous. Let me be autonomous as possible. In the university, we have disability policy.
Policy.
And this policy has guidelines on reasonable accommodation for these students. It addresses the support staff, it addresses the students, it addresses the student union, it addresses lecturers. So that policy is there. And again, I told you this, there are 13 faculty. Each faculty, there's assistant dean of students. Assistant dean, most of the assistant dean of students' work is to ensure that the students who are having any kind of impairment are catered for. If this student need such and such, it is the responsibility of assistant dean of students with partnership with the student leaders to notify the administration of whichever need that this student is arising. 2, within the strategic plan, the University of Nairobi is yet to come up with what we call a support center. So a support center is where all the assistive devices will be placed, and within that we'll be having at least 4 vans within the institution, and we are anticipating this before September. 4 vans are any person with disability, most of students, when you are within the premises of university and you want to move to whichever premise, then this one is, you just give a call to the operator, then this one takes you whichever place you need within the University of Nairobi. You get the point? So meaning the mobility and the logistical part of it is much taken care of.
Is this written down in a policy?
It is written down in a policy.
There's a document.
In that strategic plan, we have it. It is written down and within that policy.
So this is the thing. A strategic plan that has elements for which will guide a policy is totally different from the establishment of a policy. See, because now once it is adopted as policy, that means it binds everybody who operates under it in how they will act. So if it's still in the plan level, has not been adopted, then you see now where you might have, you know, a bit of a challenge here and there. Yeah,
I agree with you. This strategic plan has been adopted. And it has been, the copies have been distributed as to all the faculties, and even the copies of the policy. I wish I would have carried a printed one, but I just came from home, so I didn't pass by our office today being a holiday. So we have that policy well noted and well written, and with the language that all understand. Yes. And I am the acting chair for even the students with disability from other universities. So I do not only center myself.
This is other government universities?
Yes. And not government. Other universities.
Period.
Period.
Private and public.
Period. Yes.
So at the point of admission, does a university know the students it expects who are going to come with a disability? And their discipline?
To some extent, yes, because nowadays we have COOPs, which does the placement. So you find COOPs notifies the disability liaison office that we are bringing. In the Kenyan government, there's what we call affirmative action. So affirmative action, when you are a student with disability and you are sitting for your final exams, you fill this affirmative action form. And this affirmative action, one of the privileges it gives you, it assumes that if you did not have the disability, you will have scored higher. So if, for example, you are having a discipline and you wanted to take, let's say, economics. Economics in the university, you need to have at least a B plane. Then it assumes that you can do international relations. So you do not go to colleges and start from diploma. So through this affirmative action, you get access, you get to learning institution of your choice. So through this affirmative action, once a student with disability who is sitting a final exam, and after release of the exam and the results are out, the way you fill COOPs, you fill together with the affirmative action form. And COOPs get your credentials. And when COOPs places you to that university, it notifies the assistant dean of students. And if there's a disability liaison office within that institution, the assistant dean of students notifies the officer in charge of disability liaison officer. Now, for example, in the university. And then the committee. Yes. Now, in the university, we have a supportive assistant, a liaison officer called Dr. Mildred Domino. She get notified that we are bringing so and so and having such and such a disability. So the institution knows, to know. So that upon admission, we even help them in the process of admission and get them the good room and good hostel and and all that.
So we go back to a question that we had asked earlier. Haya Dennis, as the chair of the UON Students with Disability Association,
Yes.
as acting chair of the umbrella body for all the students with disability in all universities,
Yes.
do you know how many university students currently have a disability?
The total number within the all.
Let's start with UON. Do you know how many university students at the University of Nairobi have a disability?
Yes, I do.
How many?
I told you the one that we've recognized are 200, but we are speculating there will be more than 1,000.
Why are you speculating?
Because it is a journey that we've started.
But the university has the records.
Okay, you see what happens, my friend. The records happen. You must understand that students with disability are much in denial.
Okay, but we're talking about those that filled out the form.
Yeah, filled out the form of.
Came through KUSIPS, admitted to the University of Nairobi. Right?
Yes, sir.
Are you saying that only 200 had been recognized by KUSIPS? Or are you saying that there are more that had been recognized by KUSIPS who you don't know about?
I don't want to say that I do not know about, but that the institution has not recognized.
Okay, for you to be recognized, does it therefore mean that you must have registered as such?
Yes, you have
Meaning
registered.
you filled in the forms with KUSIPS, and then you've also filled that disability form.
Okay, yes, for KUSIPS to recognize.
Yes.
Yes.
So if someone doesn't fill that form,
then KUSIPS take you as a regular student
without disability,
Without disability.
and yet you may have disability.
Yes, there are those many situations, a lot.
So you and the organization would not know because the list that the dean has would not have a record of this person as having disability.
Definitely.
And yet they have disabilities.
Yes. So what we do, we just go to, I just sent my people, my cabinet to the grounds because we have a representative from each faculty. Kindly, you walk around as a responsible leader. If you come across observe through observation, if you come across a student whom appears to have a disability, please record the credentials and forward them to us.
Something I have to ask.
Does the university, does the university do the same?
The university does the same, but
because there is a whole structure you've told us about here, the liaison office, the disability mainstreaming committee, you'd expect that that's also what they're doing.
Yes.
To know for sure
whether
you had filled out the form that you want to be recognized or not.
Yes.
I know that I owe you a duty to provide you this support.
Yes.
Does it do this?
So what happens, what I've seen since I got into power, is that when KUSIPS gives those records, the school records, but now during first year's admission, we have to put a desk that registers only students who are having disability in whichever faculty that registration is happening. So every admission, we set a desk in all the faculties to register students with disability. But you find, the official period of admission is 1 week. But you find a student will be admitted 3 weeks after admission. So, and this student has a disability. So, it will be difficult that this student it will take time to recognize. And again, we have 3 categories of learning. We have module 1 day, which are the regular students who have been brought by KUSIPS under help or JAB. Then we have module 2 day. These are the self-sponsored but are taking lessons during the day. Then we have module 2 evening. These are the self-sponsored students who are taking lessons in the evening. So you find that there's a student who is module 2 evening, do not come to school at all, only sits at home and does exam and do that, and has a disability. So it will take quite some time. Now when you cooperate with the class rep of that module, then you will get to know, kumbe there's a classmate in module 2 evening in 4th year in 2nd semester who has a disability. You get the point. So I think it is a journey, Mr. Eric, and I have to admit that the university sometimes slept in class, but is now being awakened by Spice FM.
Good fun there, good fun.
Yeah, and again, I didn't just mention this. We have a plan that 100% transmission, that after all the students with disability who graduates get 100% transmission to the job market. So the university is responsible for that, to look for them jobs outside.
Okay, to assist them in securing.
And that one has happened. Even myself, I've also tried to look for internship for my students who have disability.
Haya.
Yes.
You're doing a good job.
I'm grateful.
You're doing a very good job. Haya Dennis is the chairman of the University of Nairobi Students with Disability Association. He's been our guest this morning. Thank you for tuning in to the Situation Room.